now we heard a lot of pitches. There's good pitches, there's bad pitches, and there's people who teach startups how to create the maybe not 100% perfect, but 90% perfect pitch. And there's guys who do nothing else but this, because our next speaker is a professional pitch trainer. Please join me on stage, Christoph, aka the Pitch Doctor. So then, laptop is up and running. By the way, is there someone working for Adidas in the audience?
I'm still looking for official sponsorship. Anybody working at Adidas? Nike?
No.
No?
Sorry.
Okay. Can't do anything about that. Okay.
All right.
So let's get to it. Life is a pitch, and that's what I want to talk about, because if life is a pitch, if everything in life is a pitch, you better not be bad at pitching, right? And if life is a pitch, I want to ask you, do you remember your first ever pitch? Try to picture that. Try to remember the first time you pitched. Because I know, I'm not just the pitch doctor, I'm also clairvoyant. I see things. I have a big crystal ball at home. I didn't bring it because it's really heavy. But I know what your first pitch was. And your first pitch was actually this. This is the first pitch every human being does. You've just been born. It's cold. It's very light. It's weird. So what you're doing is you're pitching for somebody to make it better, give you milk, give you warmth, give you whatever. And the only way you can pitch is you scream, because that's the only way you can articulate anything. But you're pitching, and it works. It's the easiest pitch you'll ever do, because mommy and daddy can't do anything about the cute baby, but help the cute baby immediately. So then you move on in life, and you're pitching again, and the pitches change, and the tactics have changed, because now you're not cute anymore. So you have to do it in a different way. So you do it by being really annoying. And you're basically saying, if you don't buy me ice cream right now, I'll make your afternoon a living hell. And then you move on in life, and eventually, maybe, you do this. And this is the definition of a pitch. A pitch is somebody proposing something, wanting somebody else to say yes. That's what we're doing when we're pitching a startup. We're proposing an investment opportunity. We want somebody to say yes, and that's exactly what this is. Somebody's proposing, spend the rest of our lives together, other person, ideally, hopefully, says yes. So pitches are everywhere in life, and the fun part about pitches is pitches make life better. Whenever you can pitch well, you get what you want, and life becomes more fun. So for example, if you're meeting friends to go to the movies, and you haven't decided which movie to see yet, so you meet in the theater, and you're standing in the lobby, and you're discussing which movie to see, what's going on is everybody's pitching the movie they want to see. And then the group will end up watching the movie that the person that pitched best proposed. So if you're pitching well, you will always see the movie you want to see, and if you're pitching badly, you will end up seeing this movie. And this is not what anybody wants to do. So if you're good at pitching, it really improves your life, which is why I think it's really a life skill everybody should learn. For startups, pitching is even more important, because everything you do as a startup is a pitch, because by definition you're doing something new that nobody knows about. So the first thing you have to do all the time is tell people what it is, tell people why they should care. And everything good for a startup starts with a pitch. The first thing you do when you have an idea is you pitch somebody else. You pitch a potential co-founder, you pitch your early employees, and if you're not pitching well, they're not going to come work for you. They're going to work at Google, and they're going to say, I don't care about this startup, because they didn't get your pitch. They didn't buy into your pitch. Equally, if you want PR, if you want TechCrunch to write about you, you better pitch them well, or they're not going to do it. If you want to sell a product to a customer, you better pitch well to them, or they're not going to buy it. And at the end of the day, we all need cash to burn. We all need to do office parties. We all need to buy foosball tables and all that stuff. If you're not pitching well to investors, you're not going to get the money as well. And that's the really sad part of not being able to pitch well for a startup. Because if everything good starts with a pitch and you're not good at it, life sucks. Life sucks, and being the startup that can't pitch sucks as well. Now, a lot of people think that pitching is this skill, this talent that you just have to have. I either like being on stage at an event like this, talking to people, or I don't like it. But it's really not like that. It's not the art of pitching. The art of pitching, there's 37 books that are called the art of pitching, and I think it's bullshit because it makes people believe that it's a talent that comes from the heaven and suddenly you have it. But it's not really like that. It's actually a craft. It's a craft you have to develop, it's a craft you have to work on, it's a craft anybody can learn. In my life, I've met one single person that was not able to learn how to pitch at all. Everybody else can improve very, very quickly. And how do you do that? By training your pitch muscle. You go to the pitch gym, you train your pitch muscle, and you get better at it. And I have developed a secret process on how to become good at pitching, okay? Patent pending. So my lawyer, is my lawyer in the room? No, hopefully not. My lawyer always tells me not to tell anybody because the patent for the process is still pending, okay? I will make an exception for you if you promise not to tweet this, okay? Can you promise not to tweet this slide? Excellent, I got the promise right back. Good. So here's the process. The first step is very simple. You have to pitch. It doesn't matter what you pitch, it doesn't matter to whom you pitch, it doesn't matter why you pitch it, you just have to do it because that's the baseline you need. On top of that, the second step you have to do is you have to pitch. Doesn't matter to whom, doesn't matter what, you just have to do it. And now after these two steps, the third step is the most important one, and that's you pitch. And now the smart people in the room know what number 4 and number 5 are. So pitching is something you learn by doing it. It's not something you learn from a book, it's not something you learn from an online course, it's something you learn from doing it and doing it again and realizing what you like and realizing how you fail. And that's where I come in. So who am I? I'm Christoph. My last name is very funny in German. If you can think of any jokes about my last name, make them, but not to me. Tell them to somebody else because I've heard them all. I've worked in startups for 10 years. I've done a lot of corporate innovation stuff. I've failed at doing my own startups a couple of times. I love brightly colored Adidas jackets. I always wear them. It's not bad taste. It's personal branding and the good kind. Again, if anybody from Adidas is in the room, sponsor me. If anybody from Nike is here, I will change this slide and I'll go Nike in a heartbeat if you pay for it. For the last 5 years, I've been better known as the pitch doctor around Germany, Europe, a little bit of Northern Africa, because I've helped a lot of startups in the last couple of years with their pitches. I do it for startups directly. I do it for a lot of accelerator programs, incubators, corporate, venture labs, whatever, because wherever you have to pitch to get what you want, even if it's internal budget at a corporate, you need to pitch well. In those 5 years, I've done roughly 1,500 startups, so this is my built-in NDA. I don't have to sign NDAs. I will sign them if you ask me, but I don't need it because I literally forget everything I hear the moment I leave the room, because it's just too many startups, they all blend into each other, and I always have this feeling like I've heard something similar before, but I can't place it. So I will never be able to tell your competition any of your secrets because I'm old, I have a small child, and I see way too many startups. Now, when we talk about startup pitching, the biggest thing are investors, right? So we have to talk about investors a little bit. Are there investors in the room? Any investors in the room? Anyone? No, it's good. So we can speak freely. Investors are these mythical figures, right? These weird people that we don't understand because they're so different. They have money, they sit in the money and they throw it somewhere and then stuff happens and then they have more money. I think that's what most startups think is an investor. But what you have to realize is that even investors, just like you and me, are human beings. I know, that sounds weird, right? But they're human beings. Until the AIs take over and make investment decisions in a couple of years and all the VCs become unemployed, until then, it's human beings making those decisions. And as human beings, investors have a brain, yes, and in most cases a very big one. They have a brain, and that's what is always easy to understand. We always know they have a brain, and then we want to talk to the brain. And especially in Germany, we're very fact-based. We always think, that guy, that woman has a brain, let's talk to the brain, let's give them facts, and then they make an investment decision and they give us money. What we always forget is that every human being not only has a brain, but they also have a heart. And the heart is really important, and we always forget about the heart. Because before somebody even thinks about your startup idea and thinks about investing, they have to have that feeling in their heart where they're at least interested in what you're doing. So triggering that emotion is the first thing you have to do. Because here's the tough truth about investors. They see so many startups every single year that they don't give a fuck anymore. And that's a very normal reaction. Because if you get 1,000 startup pitches a year, you can't care about each one of them. You would go insane. They would all be in an asylum. But they don't want to be there, so they build this wall, like Trump, right? They build this wall and they say, all these startups, I don't really care. Unless and until you make them care. That wall, you have to break down that wall. You have to get them to care. You have to be one of the few startups out of 1,000 that they actually care about. And to do that, you have to amaze them. You have to do something where they go like, wow, I didn't think that could happen. You have to entertain them, because if they're not entertained, they'll find something else to think about. You have to make them think. You have to give them something that triggers their curiosity, their intellectual curiosity, where they think, oh, this is something I would like to think about more. This is something I would like to spend time on. Because investors are in a great position. By giving you money, they're picking which startups they will be involved in and work with for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And that's what they take very seriously, because they only have limited amount of time. They don't want to spend their time on something they don't care about. So they will pick a startup that they do care about, that makes them think, where they go like, this is going to be challenging and interesting and fun for the next couple of years. So to get investors there, where they're emotionally involved, you might have to make them laugh, like this very famous startup investor, or in some cases, you might have to make them cry, like this very famous basketball player. It depends on what you're pitching, obviously. If you're doing an app for funerals, doing an hilarious startup pitch is not the way to go. But if you do something that's supposed to be fun, then also your startup pitch might have to be fun. The important thing is, you have to get an emotional reaction. You have to get their pulse to go up when they hear about you for the first time. And this is a quote from an investor who did a talk recently at a conference where I was, and he said, of course I'm looking at the market, of course I'm looking at the team, of course I'm looking at traction, whatever the things are they go by, but if the first pitch doesn't get my pulse to go up, I'm not even looking at it. Because they pick what they spend their time on for the next couple of years. So the emotional reaction has to be there first, because only after that the brain will even think about, what is the business, do I really believe in it? And the tool to make the pulse go up, the tool to take somebody from where they don't care to where they do care, that's your pitch. That's why the pitch is so important, because it changes the perception of something that people don't care about to where they do care about. Now, what makes for a good pitch? There's 3 things that have to be in a good pitch. You have to have good content, so the stuff you're saying has to be good. And this is not very hard to understand. Everybody agrees on that. And especially in Germany, we're always facts, 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 right? So content, yes. What we don't realize often is that performance, how am I pitching what I'm pitching, is equally as important. Because people have to go by what they see. And they see you in action. They see you pitching something. They will think about what this means for you in other ways. So if you perform well, they will think you're good at other stuff as well. Even if it's not true, but it's the only thing they see. And then there's a third part, and that is not quite as important as content and performance, but it's something where you can ruin a lot of stuff. And that is how you visualize what you're presenting. So if you're using PowerPoint, that's your charts, but it could also be a flip chart, it could be whatever. But and you don't have this in every pitch, right? But if you have it, you want to make sure that you don't ruin the pitch by having terrible slides or by having terrible visualizations. So now I want to give you 3 things you should probably do when you're pitching your startup. And I want to give you 3 things you probably shouldn't be doing when you're pitching your startup. Why is the probably in there? Because pitching is not an exact science. It's not 100% true, this you always have to do and this you can never do. The things that are terrible ideas for 99 startups might be the perfect idea for the 100th. So always think for yourself, but these are pretty good pointers because they apply to most situations. So the first thing you should do is start with the question that comes to mind when you see this picture. What is the question that comes to mind when you see Berlin hipsters with glitter in their beards for Christmas last year? You're asking, why the hell are they doing that? Okay? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I haven't done it myself, but I don't know why they do it. But why is the question you need to answer in your pitch first. I don't know if you've read this book, Shimon Sinek, Started With Why. It's a very good book, and he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that's something that's changing for companies, and it's very, very true for startups. For a startup, people first have to understand why are you doing what you're doing. And that's why almost every startup pitch should start with this. With the basis of your startup, the problem that you're trying to solve. And when you're describing the problem and you're describing who has that problem, you want to make the audience feel the pain of your customer. If the audience is sitting there and saying, oh yes, I feel how these people are suffering because there is a problem, they're ready to see your solution. And now this is a really important moment in your pitch, because if you look at the burning house and you look at this solution, you will immediately have a gut feeling that says, that's not the right solution, it's not going to work because it's a giant house that's on fire and this is a tiny fire extinguisher. So, of course, you want to have the moment where you show the right solution to the problem. Does this mean that you have to pitch a giant solution? No. Most importantly, it means that you really have to look at the right problem and describe the right problem. What I see a lot is startups describing a big problem, but then having a very specific solution to one little part of that problem, but that way you will disappoint people. Because if you're talking about solving cancer, and I get excited about you can solve cancer, and then you give me a nice solution that solves a very specific issue of cancer, I'm still disappointed. So make sure you're describing the exact problem that you're solving and not giving an overall problem where you're only solving a tiny bit of it. Don't think you are Brad Pitch. I tried to get the Twitter handle Brad Pitch, by the way. I couldn't get it because there is a person that's actually called Brad Pitch. He doesn't tweet much, but he has the account, and I think you should keep it because it's his actual name. So what do I mean by this? Pitching is not acting. A lot of people think that pitching has to do with acting, but it's actually not true. Pitching has to do with being yourself and being comfortable in being yourself. That's the only thing that works, because you can't pretend to be something else unless you're really good at acting. If you're really good at acting, become an actor. Don't try startups, because only 1 on 1,000 makes $1 billion or whatever the numbers are. Okay? You have a better chance of going to Hollywood if you're that good an actor. If you're not that good an actor, be yourself, because people can always feel when there's something fake going on in a pitch, when there's somebody faking it on stage. So if you're a nerd, be a nerd. Who is a nerd in the room? Any nerds? That's like a handful of nerds. We're seriously screwed. Germany is going down the drain. We don't have enough nerds. What we have is business people, okay? If you're a business person, so you're essentially a clown, you studied business management like myself, be a clown, okay? Don't try to be a nerd if you're not a nerd. If you're an evil clown, be an evil clown, okay? Be yourself. There is no faking it. People will find out. It never ends with a pitch. People do due diligence. They will find out you're an evil clown, not a nice clown, and they will not like it. Make sure they know from the start, because then you find the right fit. It's like dating. You don't want to fake it on the first 5 dates, only then to realize that you are not rich and you don't have all that stuff. It doesn't work like that. Investors don't want to find out that you're the evil clown after the 5th date. They want to know immediately, because some investors love the evil clown and they will invest in you. So be who you are. Don't try to be the next Steve Jobs, ever, okay? No black turtlenecks, because it's not going to work. What you have to do is you have to find your own style. Figure out what works for you, and that's different for everyone. I present with a lot of silly pictures. Not everybody has to do that. You have to find what works for you, and most of the time what works for you is what you also like when you see others do it. So look at other pitches and figure out what works for you. What you definitely should do is be emotional when you're pitching your startup, because you want an emotional reaction from the other side, right? We talked about that. If you want that, you have to show emotions, because only then people will start caring. If it feels like you don't care, they will not care. And half the time when I see Germans pitch, to be honest, I feel like there's somebody behind stage with a gun forcing the person to do the pitch of a startup they don't even like by telling them, I'm going to shoot you if you don't do it. I know it's not true. Almost all founders love what they're doing, but you have to show it. So you have to show the emotions. You have to show that you love your startup. The love needs to be right there, okay? And you should also have some fun when you're on stage. Because if I'm investing in you, if I'm doing anything with you, I also want to have fun the next 5, 6, 7 years. I don't want to work on something that's really, really painful and not fun at all. So show that you're having fun and other people will have fun as well. And now I know that most people love their startups and they have fun doing it. They never show it on stage. Why is that? Energy. Energy is the problem. People go on stage, they don't bring the energy, so it all feels very much like they don't have emotions, they don't like it, although they do. Bring energy on stage and people will actually feel your emotions. Search for the Holy Grail. What is the Holy Grail of pitching? Pitches are always short, either because you get 3 minutes on stage or because the attention span of people is short. So if a pitch is short, but a startup is a complicated thing and you have to talk about many things, you obviously can't go super slow. Now, you might say, what about if I go super fast and I just run through it, I leave half of it out, I just pace through it? It's not going to work either, because it's not about how fast you can talk, it's about how fast people can listen to you. So that doesn't work either. Now, having a complicated thing like a startup to pitch in a limited amount of time and not being able to go super fast, that is a problem. But there is a solution to the problem, and the solution is precision. Precision is the holy grail of pitching. Saying exactly what you need to say, and only that is what will make a great pitch. Every word counts. If you're doing a 3-minute pitch, every single word counts. And you have to get to a point where you're so precise from a content perspective and from a language perspective that people can get it, although you don't have a lot of time to explain it to them. And this also means you have to limit your language a little bit. I call it Lego language. Don't make your English teacher proud when you're pitching. Don't do Shakespearean sentences. Go very, very short sentence, easy words. That makes it easy for you to do the pitch, and it makes it easy for an audience to understand it, because this is new stuff for them, right? If you make it complex, if you do long sentences that only make sense after 2 minutes, they're not going to remember what was in the beginning of the sentence. Block by block by block, like talking to a 6-year-old, okay? And then here's the biggest thing for precision, and that is practice. Practice the hell out of your startup pitches. Go to tiny events where there is not a single investor and practice your pitch, because you need those repetitions so that when you have an important pitch, you're actually able to do a good one. Have a very clear ask for your audience, because pitching is proposing something, right? So the audience has to understand what the proposal actually is and what you want them to do. Unfortunately, this year is the most common final sentence of pitches. That's it. And then people leave. That's how most people end their startup pitches, and it's terrible. Because you want to have a strong finish that people can remember, and you want to give them a very, very clear thing that they should do next. What this essentially is the buy button of your pitch. Because your website, at some point, there is a buy button, and you want people to click on it. When you're pitching, you also want people to understand where they should say, yes, I want to do that. So they have to understand what you're asking for, and they have to know how to do it. So you have to give them homework. If you're pitching to a room full of investors at an event and you don't have a clear call to action, they're going to be like, great, no homework. I don't have to do anything about this. But if you tell them specifically what you're looking for and why they should be interested in it, then they will come and talk to you, and that's your goal. Talking about how to finish a pitch, don't be like a bad lover, okay? The second most common sentence after that's it, is actually thank you for your attention. And I heard it here today, I think, already. Why am I not a big fan? I will tell you, because this is only at the end, but a lot of people also start their pitches like this. Thank you for the opportunity to present here today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to me. What you're doing essentially is saying thank you after sex. Now, who says thank you after sex? Show of hands. Quickly. One guy? Okay. Here, quick side note. There's always one guy raising his hand. And I couldn't figure out why that happens when I asked that question until I realized it's the one guy who thinks it would be a good idea to let people know that he actually has sex occasionally. So I figured it all out. That's the guy. Okay, so here's the thing. Why don't you want to say thank you after sex? There's nothing wrong if everybody says thank you after sex. 2 people, 5 people, I don't judge. Whatever you're doing, if everybody goes like, yeah, thank you, high five, awesome, amazing, that's great. What's bad is if one person says thank you and the other person doesn't. Because then what you're essentially saying is, I know it's bad for you, but thanks for still doing it. And that's not the message you want to send after a pitch either, okay? Because if you're saying, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, you're essentially saying, thank you, this was worthless for you, but thanks for wasting your time with me. And that's not what it is. Whoever's listening to your pitch, their job is to find amazing startups. It's their job to find their next investment. So ideally, in your pitch, you're doing something great for yourself and you're doing something great for them. So pretend like there's eye-level communication between investors and startups. I know startups are the little guy, investors are so powerful, but don't make it worse by going, oh, thank you for having me. You know who always says thank you for having me? Big stars when they go on like talk shows. Brad Pitt walks into some guy's talk show and says, thank you for having me. Why does he do it? Because he's the big star. He wants to make himself smaller. You're already the tiny Muxy Bogues. You don't want to make yourself smaller, okay? So don't be like a bad lover. And also, don't fuck it all up with bad PowerPoint, okay? A lot of people think that PowerPoint is the source of all evil in the world. I don't believe it, but death by PowerPoint is a thing, right? I believe the issue is more how we use PowerPoint. Because people don't realize that there's two completely different animals, like this very cute penguin and this even cuter wombat, between a public presentation and an emailed slide deck. Now, here's the thing. When you want to send somebody information by email, what do? You send an email and you attach a PDF, right? There's, hey, this is our stuff, have a look at it, tell me what you think. We do this all the time. It's a totally fine use case, okay? We take a PowerPoint, we turn it into a PDF, we send it. Because we send it and we're not there when the people read it, we have to make the PowerPoint, the file, self-explanatory. All the information has to be in there. Now, the issue is really Microsoft Word. If Microsoft Word wasn't that shit, we would be doing that in Microsoft Word. Because what we're sending out essentially is a booklet or a book, something that people should read. That should be built in Microsoft Word, or if you have the big package in Microsoft Publisher, okay? But because Word sucks and putting a picture in Word is a disaster and nobody pays for Publisher, we use PowerPoint. That's fine, I don't mind that. The problem happens when now somebody says, do you want to come pitch at our event? Bring your PowerPoint and you talk to people about it for 5 minutes. And now the lazy person in your head says, I have this PowerPoint file that I sent to people. I could just put that on the wall and use it as my PowerPoint for this event. And I know you do this all the time. Corporate people, screw you. You do it all the time. You have the one presentation, you send it to people to read it, and then you're presenting it, and everybody dies of boredom. So you can never do that. This has always got to be 2 different files. And yes, I know that's twice the work, okay? But life as an entrepreneur is tough, so you have to do it. Because otherwise you're presenting this, you're standing next to this, and people are reading it, and they're not listening to what you're saying, and they're still not listening to what you're saying, and they're reading this. And this effect is actually worse the more educated the people you're talking to are. If I take this slide and I go to a street corner in a bad part of the town and I talk to a bunch of 14-year-old kids, they're going to still look me in the eye because they hate reading. They're not going to read unless you hold a gun to their head, right? But people that have PhDs like you guys, you read because you've been conditioned to read text. Try to look at a text in a language and in a font that you can read, and try not to read it. You can't. You automatically read it. So whenever you show people stuff that they can read, they will do it. They will not pay attention to you, but that's what you want because you're saying all the important stuff, right? So use pretty pictures instead and short lines that underline what you're saying. And if you use pretty pictures, why not make them a little bigger? Because then they look better, okay? And here's a pet peeve of a lot of investors that have told me this. If you're using pictures in your pitch presentation, and you have the watermark in there because you didn't pay for it, you're going to fail. Because investors can tell that you're not committed. If you're not even committed to a freaking stock image, how can you be committed to a startup idea and pushing it through walls for the next 5 years, okay? So pay for the picture, get rid of the watermark, and show your commitment to the idea. Because if there's a watermark in there, you might be doing something else tomorrow. And for Christ's sake, put one thought on a slide. There is no reason to save slides by putting multiple things on one slide. Slides are free, okay? The business model of PowerPoint is not pay per slide. It's download a pirated version of the program once and use it for free for the rest of your life. That's the business model of PowerPoint. So use as many slides as you want so you make sure that people don't get distracted by the next thing you're gonna talk about and then not listen to the thing you actually are talking about. So here is the worst slide I've ever seen in my life somebody do in a presentation. And this was, I think, the trade minister of Dubai. Could have been another minister. The person in charge of the harbor in Dubai. And they just redone the harbor. Amazing. He wanted to talk about it at a conference here in Berlin. He had a 45-minute slot. He had 18 things that he wanted to talk about, which I think is decent. 18 things, 2 minutes per point. A little bit intro, a little bit outro, 45 minutes, fine. How many slides do you think did he have for those 18 points and those 45 minutes? He had one slide. And I show you what that one slide looked like, okay? So he had 15 of his bullet points on that slide. And then he realized that the slide was sort of full. And there wasn't another line below 15. Thankfully, he was a very smart, very innovative guy, so he just went 16, 17, 18. Now, he was starting his, and this is what the slide looked like from the start, right? The effect, I did that to show you what it looked like. This is what the slide looked like from the beginning. So now he goes on stage, he says his introduction, whatever, he starts talking about the first point, maybe he starts talking about the second point, and I'm sitting in the last row and I'm seeing the people go on this. So at that point, I knew exactly where they were reading, right? And they were reading already number 16, 17, and 18, which means that he could have stopped talking right then and there because people had read everything. And what people do when they read everything is I know this, I don't want to listen anymore, I don't care. So he ruined his entire presentation by doing that. So my advice to you is don't do that, okay? It's a terrible idea. This is all I want to say for today. I hope it helps you with your next pitch. I really thank you for your attention and for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to me today. I have 10 seconds left, so I will let you know that I have business cards that have my face and my information on one side, which is very boring, but they have your favorite slides from my presentation on the other side. So if you want to grab one, come to me and grab a card, okay? Thank you.